Hey guys, welcome back to Cherry Hill Farm. I'm standing out here in our second planting of no-till spaghetti squash, and it looks pretty good. We need some rain, but hopefully there's a thunderstorm that's going to cook up this afternoon, if not maybe tomorrow. But this was planted 2 weeks ago, and you can see it looks pretty good. I'm pretty happy with it. Not quite getting the weed control I'd like to this year, but we're still in the learning process on this, and we're gonna get it nailed down. I'm probably gonna have to come through with a four-wheeler and band these row middles. That's what I did on the other. We'll go over there and look at that in just a minute. I'm standing here in a field of black plastic that we laid pretty early, maybe the end of March, but it was actually squash on squash. We had squash here last year, and I know that's not a good practice, poor rotation, but when you barely got enough acres to grow the amount of produce that you have to have, sometimes you just do what you got to do. But I kind of wish I had dissed this field and just walked away from it, because if you'll look right here, these are volunteer spaghetti squash that came up between the rows of black plastic. This field has not even been planted yet. You can see there's no holes in the plastic. These volunteer spaghetti squash are on the verge of ripening. And what we planted over here, no-till, that we're about to go look at, it is nowhere near that far along. So anyway, this is our first no-till spaghetti planting that I'm standing in. Really happy with it. Again, it needs some rain, just like the first one we looked at, but I was pretty happy when I walked out here, and the very first thing I saw was this little guy. Plants look healthy. Looks like when I banded the row middles with herbicide that it did a pretty good job. We still got some weeds growing in the row, but as far as row middles, which there's not really any row middles left at this point, they've really started to run. It looks pretty clean. We've got a little bit of lamb's quarters and some morning glories, but I think our squash are far enough along at this point that they're gonna kind of take over and pretty well crowd everything else out. We've got quite a few spaghetti squash laying out here. One of the biggest things that we're always fighting as produce farmers is disease and insect pressure. And I am very pleased. I don't know if it's just been the weather has been more forgiving, or if it's our fungicide spray program, or what, but maybe it's a combination of all. But I'm very pleased with the lack of disease and insect pressure that we're getting in this field this year. As you can see, everything's real consistent color. Very little bug bites, no speckling or yellowing. It's looking pretty good. Hopefully in about 3 weeks we'll be out here cutting spaghetti. So I was just talking about how great my spaghetti squash looks, and how pleased I am with it and thankful I am for it. Well, you just have to take the good with the bad. This is a butternut field that I'm standing in. It was planted at the same time as our spaghetti, and you can see how very pitiful a stand we got. And we've actually replanted this twice. This is, believe it or not, this is a different variety than the poor stand that we got on the black plastic. So I don't know what it is with the butternut seed this year, but we're just getting very poor germination, and worms are eating them as soon as they pop out of the ground. It's not looking like a good butternut year, but anyway, we'll take what we can get. This is our tomato, one of our tomato plots. What I'm standing in right here is a variety that come out of NC State called Mountain Rouge. It is a heritage tomato. It's got the qualities of heirloom and the qualities of a hybrid. It's more disease resistant, more resistant to splitting when it rains hard, and you get a more durable fruit that'll ship a little better, but you get the taste and the look of an heirloom, and it's supposed to be real similar to Brandywine. So it's they're looking pretty dang good. We're a little bit farther behind where I'd like to be, and this row here, somebody missed a lot of suckers when they were doing sucker control the other day. But anyway, they're looking really good. They're covered up in blooms, and I don't see any sign of disease. Maybe I should knock on one of these stakes, but so far they're looking really good. This year we've got on the NC State fungicide program for tomatoes and been following it strictly every week, and our tomatoes are just really looking good. Over here we got some striped Germans and some Krista hybrid tomatoes, but over on the other side of the field you can see our eggplant. They are really starting to look pretty good. We haven't tied them yet. We like to go through and sucker our eggplant a few times before we start tying them. Eggplant are they're different than a tomato. They have a lot stronger stem on them, so they stand up pretty good by themselves. But we found that staking them is worthwhile because it really keeps them out of the row, and it keeps them where you can see the fruit better and pick them easier. But they are coming along quite nicely as well. I recently got a question about our irrigation system, how it works, where the water comes from, and so forth. So I'll give you a little rundown on it. In 2017 we had this system installed, and we've got 1-inch pipe that runs underground from our well up about 200 yards to these two twin 2,500 gallon tanks. And you can see right here, this is our 1-inch line that comes up, and if you put in clear tanks they will grow algae. So that's just kind of the way it is. You can paint them black, but you can't run enough water to keep algae from growing inside them. But in here we have what works like a toilet fill valve, and when the water level goes down it cuts on. That's pretty simple. Out the bottom we've got 2-inch lines that run into a 5 horsepower electric pump. There's a big difference in a 5 horsepower electric pump and a 5 horsepower gas pump. These pumps will move a lot of water. But from this pump it comes up, it goes out to a valve that we can fill the sprayer, or we can also fill our fertigation tank, which I'll talk about in a minute. It comes out of the pump, goes through a screen filter, and this is our fertigation unit, and then it goes down into the ground and out to valves out in our fields. So we've got a Weathermatic on here, and you can set it up for zones and different times. If you had electric shutoffs on it, which we don't, but we just run it on manual most of the time. And it does have a timer, which is very nice, but I'm just gonna run this up to 3 hours. Yeah, let's go 4 hours. Cut it to run, and we're in business. The reason for the dual pressure gauges on the filter is so that you can tell if it's getting plugged up. If your pressure gauge on the right downstream starts reading a lower pressure, then you know it's time to flush that filter out. Now, a screen filter is only sufficient if you're using well water. If you're pumping out of the creek, then you run into a little different problem. You got more contaminants, more algae, and a screen filter is just not going to get it all out. So this system here was great when we were farming about 5 acres. Since we've scaled up, it became insufficient, so we have had to make some changes in our irrigation. And what we have done is we bought these sand filters, and Holly's down at the creek. She just fired the pump up. I can feel this blue hose getting tight. Basically about 900 yards that way, we've got a pump sitting on the creek and a dam, and it's just a little 5 horsepower gas pump. It's not moving a ton of water. As you can see, the pressure gauges are not even registering on this sand filter, but it pumps water from the creek up to the sand filters, and it comes through here. This sand filter would work anywhere. We could take it down to the river and irrigate the farm down there, but we can also supplement our irrigation system up here. And what we do is we just use these sand filters, clean the water, and then it runs right into our tank with our well water to supplement that. So we can, with this setup, we can run irrigation all day, every day, because we're not going to run out of water in the creek. The 1-inch line has its limitations. It's great if you're cutting it on for a couple hours, a couple times a day, watering 5 acres, but for watering 40 acres, it just don't quite get the job done anymore. So we had to add this on. The way a sand filter works, it's got gravel in the bottom, sand in the top. It's a special type of sand, but they do stop up, and when they do, you just have to turn one valve at a time. It'll blow the dirty water out. Basically, it reverses the flow of water through the filters so that you get all your mud that's accumulated in your sand. You flush all that out, and you do it one filter at a time. You cut them back on, and you're getting good clean water again. Alright, so I'm winding down on the second filter. You saw how black and nasty muddy that water was, and now it's cleared up pretty clear. It's not great, but remember, this is the back flush, so what's going to be coming out the other direction is going to be nice and clean. But that don't look bad for creek water. So this is what we got going on. We got the well still filling, but also the 2-inch line coming from the creek is filling. And even though it's not got hardly any pressure on the sand filters down there, you can see we're getting a full 2-inch stream of water. And another thing that I forgot to mention earlier that's very important, this cord right here. You see the little floating gadget right there? That is a safety shutoff. When that little floating gray ball gets turned on its side, it kills the power. It's a brake switch, and so that is a safety switch, because if this little pump right here, which is quite expensive, runs dry, it will burn up and be no good. So that's a very important little item in the scheme of this irrigation system. Alright, I'm up here at the top of the hill where one of our valves for our irrigation system is, and basically what we got here is a 3-way. We can run water to that field, we can run water out to that field, or we can run water to this field. It comes out of this valve, goes into the blue lay flat, and goes into a pressure regulator, 12 psi. The reason that we regulate the water pressure in the field is because if we regulated the water pressure all the way down there at the pump and the tanks, believe there's about 100 foot of rise between here and there, and a 2-inch line plus the friction from the water pushing up the line, we wouldn't have enough pressure by the time it got to the field to even push it out to the end of the T-tape. So we want all the pressure we can get at the field, and then we regulate it down before it goes into the manifold, into the drip tape. So you can see this lay flat here, I can't even squeeze this, it's so tight. And on this side it's tight, but it's not that tight. You can hear the water going through these little guys. I was told by the man that built this system that 1.25" pressure regulators were much less expensive than a 1/2 inch. So, and you get better flow, I guess. So that's the reason there's 2 1.25" pressure regulators instead of 1 2-inch. But it goes from there out here into the field. And I've actually got the wrong one turned on. Let's switch that out. The reason I turned that valve on and just dumped the water out the other side of the valve is because you don't want this system to deadhead. It's not good for the pump, and if you get enough pressure built up and you got a weak joint somewhere, you could blow your PVC pipe apart. So I just purged the water out the other side while I was hooking this up to the other field. This little guy right here is an air vent, and the reason for that is we've got like 1,000 foot of pipe from here to the pumps, and if it's full of air, you can do a lot of damage to your plumbing with air in the lines. Basically it'll build up pressure, water gets behind it, and it'll blow stuff apart when it gets to the end of the line. So this little ball drops down, lets all the air out till the water gets here, forces the ball up into here, and so you don't tear stuff up with your air in your lines. But now that we're hooked to the right field, let's go out here and I'll show you what's going on. We got really poor germination in this field. That's the reason you see the squash are kind of sporadic. Not really sure why, but what did germinate, we had a lot of worm issues. It was worms were clipping them off as soon as they would sprout out of the ground. It was treated seed. I don't really know why. Nobody seems to have an explanation. But anyway, that's what's going on with the germination. Most of the empty holes actually have a small plant down in the bottom of them where we've replanted now. But the way this works is we've got these fittings that are in the blue lay flat. Basically we punch a hole in the blue lay flat. There's a teardrop shaped part that twists into that hole, and then you screw this fitting down on it. Then our drip tape hooks right up to it, right here. So there's not much to it at that point. You can see all the little emitters on this end of the system are already got water dripping out of them, just like this one. So that's pretty much all there is to our irrigation system. If you've got any questions, by all means ask away, and I'll do my best to answer them. And if I don't do a very good job, tell me that too, so I can try again. What I did here a while ago is I turned this one tank right here off. The reason I did that is you can see we've been running for 40 minutes and we've only pulled 400 gallons out of this tank. No, actually 900 gallons. But if we had started the creek pump and started the irrigation pump at the same time, the creek pump would have outrun the irrigation pump and this tank would be running over down the hill, and that's no good. So I cut the other tank off. Now I'm gonna cut it back on now that we pulled some water down. Anyway guys, thanks for watching. I just wanted to give you a little rundown of how our irrigation system works and give you a little overview of what we got going on with our crops right now. I'm sorry that I did not get a video of us planting that no-till squash. My GoPro was crapping out on me and I don't know where the footage went, but it wasn't on the SD card. But anyway, thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe. Check out all of our other videos. Follow us on Instagram, and we'll see you next time.